Hello, welcome to Autocar, where we have a big mega test of £40,000 to sub £40,000 family-friendly EVs. It's a big sort of consumer-focused mega test. We're going to go through their specifications and pricing, what they like to drive, all of the other technical stuff, and have a big chat about it over 2 days as we decide what is the best family-friendly electric car.
This is a big consumer mega test the whole Autocar team have just put together for the magazine, involving 12 of the best family cars you can buy at £35,000 to £40,000. Notionally, they are available for around £100 a week after a typical deposit. We could have had 20 or more cars here, twice as many as was possible just 2 years ago, so this is a burgeoning section of the car market. We have competitors from BYD, Cupra, Hyundai, Kia, MG, Renault, Smart, Tesla, Vauxhall, Volkswagen and Volvo ready to face off as we name Britain's best sub 40k electric car. On the way, we'll talk about their prices, but also finance deals, because that's how most consumers buy cars, and unless otherwise stated, assuming a deposit of £4,000, likely from a vehicle traded in. At the end, there'll be a big chart outlining all of those details, correct as of April 2024 when we conducted this test. Let's go in alphabetical order and start then with the BYD Dolphin.
This then is the BYD Dolphin, which is the cheapest car on this test by a distance. You can, however, get an MG4 that is cheaper than this one, but of all the cars we managed to assemble, the MG was the only one we could get, the only variant that they had free. This is the cheapest by a distance.
The 201 horsepower Dolphin has a 60.4 kilowatt-hour battery and a quoted range of 265 miles. It's the cheapest of R12 at £30,140, and in an attempt to break into the market, BYD is offering either 0% APR or happy to haggle on manufacturer contributions, which means if you have a deposit of £3,200, they will put in £2,200 to get one on your driveway for under £300 a month.
And it is not the least spacious by any means, and it is not the worst feeling inside by any means. There are soft feel furnishings everywhere. It's quite sort of big, chunky, slightly cartoonified, but it's not unpleasant by any means. It's got this rather funky screen that will shift from one way to the other. Bit gimmicky. I suspect you will leave it one way or the other. Doesn't need to do both. It gets asked to do a few too many things. The emergency lane keep assist gets a bit paranoid at times, even if you are on something with no lanes, but again, you can switch that off, and I recommend you do. It's competitive in terms of range, in terms of battery size, in terms of charge speed and stuff like that. And then when you factor in the price, the fact that it's a little bit clumsy to drive seems to matter less. If you are in the UK market and you don't know who BYD is, it's sometimes easy to think, well, who are these people? Why would I buy a car from them? BYD is a massive seller of electric vehicles. It sells millions every year. It's a big operation. They know what they're doing. They make good cars. This is one of them. And its price gives it a particularly appealing viewpoint in the UK. So there is a reason that the Cupra Born was the best overall car in our sort of fun EVs test that we did on this channel not very long ago. The Abarth 500 hot hatchback felt like a proper hot hatch, but as an all-round car in terms of its competence and its ability and its fun, the Born was right up there.
The Cupra Born is our favourite family EV and also our favourite sporting EV. It has a 58 kilowatt-hour battery, a range of 262 miles and 227 horsepower. In V2 form, the Born is £39,150. Cupra won't put in a manufacturer contribution, but they do give 0% finance, which works out for a £455 monthly payment.
And it really doesn't take long behind the wheel for you to remember why this is such a nice thing. This platform, in the way that the Volkswagen Group uses it at the moment in the ID3 and this, is rear-wheel drive. And we're an enthusiast publication, so this stuff is relevant to us more than it would be from a sort of pure buying guide perspective. It's nice to drive because the front wheels don't have to worry about any torque steer. It's got a really nice balance to it. It's got a low centre of gravity to it. It's just pleasant. The Cupra is allowed to be a little firmer on the road than the ID3, so less comfortable, but it gets more body control and feels more agile and dynamic as a result. And it's far from uncomfortable, like a long way from uncomfortable. It's really nice to roll along with. The drivetrain is just well metered out. Not everything here does that sort of stuff perfectly. It's easy to think that because they're electric motors, they're the same, but the calibration can be quite different. Cupra gets it right in this car. It does have some of the ID3's problems in that the functionality of the screen is not perfect, and these temperature things don't light up, and the heated steering wheel is in a different menu to the heated seats, and it's all, you know, here and there a bit clumsy. But the rest of the stuff is fine. It's got a good charge speed. It gets a good range, we found, from its battery size. It's well priced, it's well equipped, and it is it the nicest car here to drive? So it's certainly right up there, and for Autocar that does count for quite a bit. So it's no surprise it was right up there in our Fun EVs test. It's no surprise that it is there or thereabouts in this test too, because the Cupra Born is just one of those go-to EVs that we like a great deal. And so to the Hyundai Kona, which is a car I like a lot. We have a lot of time for this car over at Autocar. One of the reasons is the extraordinary range that we tend to get out of them for the battery size. They are very efficient. They really do the kind of miles that they say they will. They have decent fast charging speeds, and it's a likeable car elsewhere. Hyundai and Kia, to their credit, have got a bit of a sort of policy of sticking with quite a lot of buttons. So there is a touchscreen, but there are also lots of physical buttons. I find that easier to use. You do kind of have to do some sort of pre-flight checks before you start, because in complying with the latest bout of European safety regulations, GSR2 regs, which means that a car has to look at where you're looking to make sure you're paying attention to the road. It's got lane keep assist, speed limit assist, stuff like that. Hyundai's interpretation of that is not as good as some manufacturers. So you could be looking over your shoulder down a slip road to see that you're going to pull onto a motorway, and a little thing will ping up going, hey, pay attention, and that's exactly what you're doing. So there are things you may want to switch off, but you can select a sort of shortcut button on the steering wheel to bring you to the right menu to do it. As long as you accept that, and I can, this is a really nice car.
The Hyundai Kona Long Range Advance is £43,040, which can be had with a £1,000 manufacturer contribution and 3.9% interest for a monthly rate of £432. It has 215 horsepower, a 65 kilowatt-hour battery, and a range of 282 miles.
Now, we've always liked Hyundais and Kias, for that matter, buying and ownership experience, the long warranty, the good value, and that sort of thing. These days, they combine that with a really feel-good interior and a pleasant driving experience too, making it all round a very compelling proposition. And so the Jeep Avenger, a bit like Vauxhall's Astra perhaps, but I mean both Stellantis vehicles, maybe it's no surprise that some of the technical aspects to it in terms of the range, recharge speed, given the battery size and everything else, they're not outstanding in any given area. It's pretty sort of bang average all the way through. This is towards the upper end of our price limit, but there are reasons that the Avenger won Car of the Year last year, and that is it is a pretty funky package. It's not very spacious in the back, but it's a pretty cool looking thing inside and out. It feels good, and it drives relatively nicely. There is a little underlying firmness in the ride. Some of the other cars here are a bit softer and everything else, and the steering is light and arguably a little bit remote given the sort of slightly keyed down, semi-sporting nature of the chassis. But it is a pleasant enough car to get along with.
The Jeep Avenger Summit lists at £38,645, but Jeep will put in a hefty £4,500 manufacturer contribution to get monthly payments down to £388 a month. The interest rate, though, is relatively high at 7.9%. The Jeep is a 154 horsepower car with a 50.8 kilowatt-hour battery and a range of 245 miles.
I sometimes think a manufacturer needs to give buyers a really good standout reason to buy a car, and I think in the Jeep's case, they do. Yeah, a lot of the technical aspects are fairly straightforward, but when it comes to the way this car looks and feels, there are few which have the same level of showroom appeal. The Kia Niro is a pleasant, easy car to rub along with. It's got a very functional interior, it's got some sort of separate buttons as well as a screen. It's got a decent range. Kia and Hyundai always get a decent range out of their batteries. This doesn't charge as quickly as some of the really quick stuff, but it's very spacious, it's good value. You can have it in like a 3 specification, which is around about £38,000. There's one that is cheaper. Mechanically they're the same, so it's just kit inside.
The 2 variant of the Kia Niro is £36,770, has 201 horsepower and a 65 kilowatt-hour battery for a strong 285 mile range. The residual value is also good and APR 2.9%, which with a manufacturer contribution of £1,000 means a monthly payment of £338.
It's quite well finished. It drives reasonably nicely. It's a bit more lumpy than the Hyundai, and it is the Hyundai that gives this car, I think, its biggest problem. Because if you just drove this in isolation, you'd go, this is nice, I like this. You look around and you go, yeah, this is pretty good. And then you get into the Hyundai, which is mechanically very similar, and it just does things that little bit better all the way around. But this is a nice car. This is a good car. This is comfortably upper middling car, and there are very good reasons why you should buy one. Now, there are various different MG4s. You don't have to have this X-Power fast one, but even if you do, it is comfortably under our sort of £40,000 limit. If you go for one which is kind of competitive on range and power and charge speed and battery size with the other stuff that we have here, the MG4 is just like sort of fairly mind-blowing value. One of them costs £30,000. It's £100 a month on a PCP, less than most of the other stuff here. And that is really hard, as a lot of buyers are finding, to look past. You know, MG is one of the fastest growing brands in the UK for those reasons.
This is the X-Power MG because it's the only one they could offer us on the dates of our test, but even though it has 429 horsepower, it still comes in at just £36,440, and cheaper versions are available. With a 62 kilowatt-hour battery, it has a 239 mile range. They will do 0% finance, but with a big customer deposit of £7,300 for a £329 monthly payment, but a poorer than average residual value.
Now, to drive, it is all right. I mean, this one's really quick. The others are not, you know, the lesser versions are not the same as that, but it's pretty firm. It feels a bit noisier than some of the other stuff here, you know, in terms of road noise. It feels a bit more brittle. In this quick version, you kind of excuse that a bit because it just goes so fast. But in the lesser versions, I think there's less of an excuse for it. But whatever you think about it, it is hard to overlook the value, which is fairly sensational. And it feels fine inside. Not troubling the stuff at the top of the class, but it's far and away far from the worst one here too. The MG4 is a really compelling EV. The Renault Megane is, I think, a really likeable car to drive. It corners flatly, it steers really accurately and pleasingly with a nice weight. There is a reason we put this in our fun EVs test, which you can find elsewhere on this channel, and it did quite well. It's not pitched as a sporting car, but it is a pleasant car to drive. It's also nice inside. It's got a pretty functional, usable interior. Of course, there is a touchscreen with stuff on it, but there are some physical other controls too. It's very easy to work your way around. Some of the sort of lower cabin materials are a bit hard, but the upper cabin surfaces are really nice. This is a nicely designed, nice to drive, good looking car. Some early e-Meganes did not have a heat pump on the battery, so they were not getting the range, anything like the range that they were supposed to in cold weather. That is now less of an issue. This is an easy EV to recommend, I think. It has a lot going for it.
The Techno Plus version of the Renault Megane is £36,439. It has a 215 horsepower motor and a 280 mile range from its 60 kilowatt-hour battery. A small manufacturer contribution and 7.9% interest means that it's £474 a month.
The pricing is good, the range is good, it's got a fast charge speed, it's pleasant inside, it's nice to drive. There is quite a lot to like about a Megane. This is the smart #1, number 1, #1. one, the smart one, I think. It's funny, it's on the same platform as the Volvo EX30. If you open the bonnet and have a look underneath at the actual structure, you can see where the structure is the same, but they feel so different. It's a much taller car. You could wear a top hat in here and get away with it. It's also, the Volvo's a really nice car to drive, right? This is just strangely lumpy, strangely, weirdly not nice to drive. If you look at the stats in terms of what it comes with, in terms of its charging speed, in terms of its range and everything else, it is there or thereabouts.
The Smart in premium spec costs £38,950, has a strong 268 horsepower and will go 273 miles from its 62 kilowatt-hour battery. On relatively low interest finance, it will cost £467 a month.
But it drives really bad. The Volvo drives really nicely. This just doesn't. It's just clumsy. It's got loads of sort of what engineers sort of call head toss, in that the body moves around a lot and your head moves around a lot. It never quite settles. It's never quite comfortable. It is a curious car. It's a funky car, well designed. I like the look of it inside. I quite like the feel of it inside. You've got to sort of accept that it's a bit blingy, but I don't mind that. There's some funky graphics. A little too much has gone on the screen. Quite a lot too much has gone on the screen, but there are some shortcuts. There are worse, basically. It's not the best, but there are worse. All in, it's fine. If you like the look of it and you don't mind a bit of slap and bong about the way it drives, it's fine. But it is not going to win in the competition it finds itself up against today. So to the Tesla Model 3, which is a Tesla. It's appealing in many ways. It's fast, it's responsive. They still do battery tech very well, they do range very well, they do charging speeds very well, and I think the supercharger network is still something one shouldn't underestimate. I really think it's, you know, the standout charge network in the UK. I think it's a really good thing.
The Model 3 rear-wheel drive comes in at just under £40,000 and has 279 horsepower and will go 318 miles from its 57.5 kilowatt-hour battery. Finance deals will let you do 10,000 miles per annum, more than the other deals here, but with a 9% APR, payments come in at £633 a month, also the highest here.
Do I have issues? The ride is a little bit firm, but it's fine because it's a responsive car, it's okay. Steering is direct and quick, I don't mind that either. The interior is very clean, it's a spacious car actually, and this is a big car in the context of this test. This offers a lot of space and value for the money. Do I have a problem with the screen stuff and the steering wheel stuff and the lack of stalk stuff? Yes, I do. The windscreen, the indicators are particularly daft because they have now moved one upon the other onto the steering wheel. Even when you're familiar with it, it is not as easy to use as a stalk, and it's an indicator. I consider that a safety critical device. It's clearly developed by somewhere where they don't have many roundabouts, because in the UK you're halfway around a roundabout and you want to go let's signal because I want to go off there, and it's one switch just above the other. It's not that clear. Ferrari moved them to the steering wheel, but at least left them on opposite sides of the wheel. It's not, I'm sort of slightly staggered that it's allowed because it's that bad. Otherwise, the Tesla screen has a lot of stuff on it, as they do, but the layout is not bad. It's better than the Volvo. I think Volvo have clearly benchmarked that EX30 against a Tesla. They've gone, yeah, we can put everything on a screen because people love it when Tesla do it. The layout here is still superior to the Volvos, but let's not kid ourselves, still not good enough. I don't think the speedo should be small and over there. I think it should be large and in front of me. I don't think the windscreen wipers, I've got a sort of one-hit wipe on the steering wheel there, but I don't think it's good enough to hide the other wiper buttons. If I push that, it brings up a little sub-menu, which, I mean, it's good that it brings it up, but that menu's not big enough. It's silly that other light stuff is all, it's not good enough, I don't think. It annoys me, this sort of thing, more than it annoys some other testers, and clearly more than it annoys some buyers. But if you can look beyond that, I struggle to, many people do, then actually there is a car in here which is really good over long distance. quite good fun, quick steering, responsive, dynamic, agile, spacious, competitive in all of the key areas in terms of buying, has a great network supporting it. I mean, there is a lot of it you can't argue with. So welcome to the Vauxhall Astra Electric, which is fine. I'm not sure fine is good enough in this company anymore. What are the compelling reasons you would buy an Astra? There are not that many. To drive, it is okay. It's a little bit lumpen. It steers quite nicely. The interior is not that special, but it is more usable than some of the other cars here, to its credit. But by the time you go through all of the aspects involved in terms of its pricing, its efficiency, the maximum charge rate, the range and everything else, the Astra just comes up in a sort of fairly standard, not particularly special rating in basically all of those areas. There's no one area where it stands out and says, yeah, you must buy an Astra. This is really why I want you to buy one of these cars.
The GS Astra Electric is £40,145 and it has 153 horsepower. Its 51.5 kilowatt-hour battery will take it 259 miles. Vauxhall will put in a £3,500 manufacturer contribution, and with a 4.5% interest rate, monthlies come in at just under £500.
It's agreeable, it's acceptable. There are more physical buttons than there are in some rivals, and I personally like that. But beyond that, this is a car that, in this company, is one of the also-rans. I think the ID3 has quite a lot going for it. It is really competitive in all of the areas that matter in terms of its charge speed and its range, its battery size, and its pricing is pretty good. This one feels nicer inside because it's spec'd up to actually comfortably over £40,000, but they feel good even at a slightly lower spec too.
This Pro version of the ID3 costs £37,115. It has 201 horsepower and does 266 miles from its 58 kilowatt-hour battery. The mileage limit on this finance example is only £5,000 per annum, but if that's okay, then 0% APR means £462 on the monthly repayments.
There are some problems with the infotainment. The fact that the temperature keys don't light up at night is a bit silly. There are things which frustrate about it, but it is a pleasant car to drive. Drive goes to the rear wheels, which means the steering doesn't have to worry about torque steer or anything. It's just really nice and smooth. I think if a Cupra Born wasn't here, we would probably look even more favourably on the ID3. But there is a lot to like about what is a very cool and one of the first practical family EVs. So several months on from the first time I drove this car, still conflicted and torn about the EX30, right? Because I really like the way it drives. I really like the way it drives, especially in this rear motor form. The four-wheel drive, all singing, all dancing, flat out one is a bit much, but this is just such a really pleasant car to drive, and it's got a nice interior. I think it looks great on the outside, and when you look at the numbers,
the EX30 single motor extended range plus is £38,585. It has a strong 268 horsepower and a fine 296 mile range from its 64 kilowatt-hour battery. The APR is high at 9.9%, which makes for the second highest monthly payments of £551, even with a £750 manufacturer contribution.
And it's a lovely product, beautifully finished, really pleasant. But the frustration I had with it, I still have with it now, in that so much is given over to the touchscreen, and not all of that is that straightforward when you get there. And there are some other frustrations, like the Hyundai, Volvo's interpretation of the latest safety regs. You just have to do a pre-flight check before you set off, because otherwise, if I go to change the temperature, the little thing will see up here that I'm not looking straight out the window, and then it starts flashing and going, you know what, you should really pay attention to the road. And I just think to myself, if you just had a button, I could pay attention to the road well enough that I wouldn't have to look away from where I'm going to try and change things, and you wouldn't then bong at me like it has just done doing that. And I think that's unforgivable for a Volvo in particular. I don't think it's forgivable in general. I feel the same way about the Tesla, in fact, because so much of that, including its ridiculous indicators, have gone to the steering wheel or to things that are not buttons. And it's such a shame. It bothers me more than it bothers my colleagues. And this being a very collegiate kind of event where everybody has their say, I will accept wherever the Volvo lands with good grace. But I personally would avoid one for the reasons I've outlined. But if it doesn't bother you, if those aspects of it do not bother you, and I know some other testers who it doesn't bother so much, this is a really lovely car.
So here is the finishing order, and this is not just me, this is a summary of what 6 separate testers all think after 2 days of solid testing. Remember, these are the best 12 cars, and there are more than 2 dozen in the market, so even the smart #1, sort of in last place, is comfortably in the top half of this segment. It has practicality and lots of power, but also a high price and is an unenticing drive. At 11 is the Vauxhall Astra Electric, a mild-mannered mainstream car which is surprisingly pricey, even allowing for some OK dynamics. The Jeep Avenger at 10 has some lacklustre interior refinement and a slightly coarse ride to undermine its excellent showroom appeal. At 9, the BYD Dolphin has some weird flaws, undermining its quite likeable demeanour otherwise. At 8 is the Volvo. I love the design of this car and I like the way it drives, but that cannot overcome some crucial ergonomic shortfalls in both convenience features and, more importantly, critical driving controls. At 7 is the very likeable Volkswagen ID3, a good car recently made better still, but still lacking the latest remodelled infotainment system available on other ID models. The Tesla Model 3 is in 6th, but it's deceptively pricey and let down for some testers by some infuriating ergonomics. I don't think those indicator switches have any place on a car on sale, and in the coming years, Euro NCAP will not award 5 stars to a car with those switches. This would be a top 3 or 4 car otherwise. 5th then goes to the Renault Megane E, which drives and rides well, if falling a little short on efficiency and interior space. And in 4th is the Kia Niro EV, a spacious, comfortable and easygoing Kia which ticks a lot of options, if having less flexible finance than the related Hyundai Kona. In 3rd place is the MG4 EV X-Power, which offers range, performance and value beyond its rival's reach. It has decent packaging and, if you buy the right version, tidy handling too. 2nd is the Hyundai Kona Electric, which has really convincing passenger and cargo space and a great range and efficiency, which make it a compelling, rational purchase if you want maximum EV metal for your money. But the winner of this test is the Cupra Born, the unanimous choice of all 6 testers for bringing desirability and driver appeal to the affordable EV scene, but also having practical qualities and a competitive price.
All things taken into consideration then, the excellent value of the MG4 puts it in 3rd place. The all-round spaciousness and comfort of the Kona sees it 2nd, but nothing comes close to the completeness of the Cupra Born.
So thank you for joining me. There's more over at autocar.co.uk. If you agree or disagree, you can write to us at autocar@haymarket.com, and you can find this feature plus our entire 129-year archive over at themagazineshop.com. See you next time.